Give a big, warm AGC welcome to Chad Goehring!
Well, thanks for having me. I'm just going to jump right into it. My name is Chad Goehring, and I'm the Development Director at Renew Hope. We are a 501c3 organization that works to raise awareness for sex trafficking here locally. So in Minnesota is our focus. And we also help to provide survivor services, so life recovery services for survivors. Adult women survivors is our niche. That's what we focus on for a couple of different reasons I can tell you about later. I want to introduce you also to my family. So this is my family. Amazing. That's my unbelievable wife, Heidi, and then our 4 kids. That's Ada, Judah, Rayanne, and Levi. And thankfully, they all got their mama's good looks. And that's nobody's more thankful for that than I am. So as advertised, I'm going to be bringing you some information tonight about the truth about sex trafficking, because there's a lot of myth that's out there about it. And so we're going to share a little bit about it. So I thought the best way to do that would be to start with kind of a definition of sorts. So sex trafficking is exploiting someone else sexually for personal benefit. So you're exploiting, or someone is exploiting someone else, and they're receiving a benefit, but the person who's being exploited is not. That's the whole definition of exploitation, right? That does not have to be a commercial transaction for it to qualify as trafficking. So it does not have to involve the exchange of money. It can involve the exchange of any other type of benefit that comes along with it. There's 3 words that are involved in to qualify for sex trafficking. Force, fraud, or coercion are the 3 words. One of those 3 things needs to exist for it to qualify as a sex trafficking issue, okay? Most of us are familiar with the idea of force, because I think that's what most people think sex trafficking is it's forceful, but that is actually not always the case. In fact, more often than not, traffickers these days are using manipulative tactics and coercion to bring their subjects into the life of trafficking. So it's not always physical in terms of physical force. It's very much so mental, emotional, all of the different things that are involved in our existence as human beings. It is the truly dominant issue of our culture. Now, you may not think that, because we just had this little blip in the universe called COVID-19. And so up until that point, for about the 10 years leading up to COVID's sort of onslaught onto our society, trafficking was picking up steam in terms of its awareness. The media was starting to pick things up. We were starting to get a little bit more and more organizations were popping up. Laws were being passed, all of those different things. As soon as COVID hit, all of it shut down, and it was all COVID all the time. And that's not just true of trafficking. That's true of a lot of different issues or causes that might be out there. But in terms of trafficking, it was really gaining steam before that. So we're trying to pick up the momentum and let people know more about it, because it's real. It is the dominant issue of our culture, because it speaks directly to who we are as people, not just the criminal side of this. It talks about who we are as people. And unfortunately, amongst people like us in this room, we may be more aware or tapped in, but for the most part, it is largely ignored in our culture. And so we're trying to change that. So as I move on, I'm going to give you a warning. And what I'm going to share with you tonight will probably upset you, might shock you, might make you angry, might sadden you. It probably do all of those things at the same time. And if it doesn't, I worry about you, to be honest. But that's not the actual warning. The warning is, once you hear what I have to say tonight, I believe you will not be able to look away. So I'm warning you about that now. As you hear what I have to say, and you learn more about this issue, it is going to be difficult for you to turn away from it. And I think that's a good thing. So, there's an old saying, impression without expression equals depression. Did you catch that? Impression without expression equals depression. What that means is basically when you are moved or impressed by something in your soul or in your heart or in your spirit or in your mind, you have a need to express that impression, right? And when we don't have an outlet for that expression, or we choose not to take those outlets for our expression, that part of us that was inspired and moved or shaken, it slowly becomes depressed, okay? And we often become numb to other issues because we don't take action on the issues that actually inspire us. Does that make sense? So tonight I'm going to share some information with you, and it's going to be hard information, but it's going to be true information. But I do want to let you know that there is hope, and the hope is you. So stay tuned, okay? All right, so here's a few things about trafficking. There are 35 million every single day victims of sex trafficking in the world today. 35 million. The industry has never been bigger, and it's estimated to be $99 billion, a $99 billion market right now. It just, this past year, surpassed drug trafficking as the most profitable criminal enterprise in the world. And part of the reason for that is because with drugs, you have to acquire product, sell product, acquire product, sell product. In trafficking, you acquire product and you sell it over and over again. That's what makes it more profitable. And so what you'll find is that in our world today, a lot of drug traffickers are getting into the sex trafficking game. Because the money's better than drug trafficking. Kind of weird, right? During the pandemic, online recruitment for trafficking shot up 22%. That's online recruitment. You can see why. I mean, nobody was going out. You already talked about that, right? I mean, and so everybody was moving everything online, and that's true for criminals as well. So those are some of the latest statistics on trafficking to let you know that this is a real problem, and it exists. Right here at home, I want to show you about this student survey that just happened this past year. The Minnesota Student Survey happens every 3 years, and it's junior high and senior high students, and they mix up the grades sometimes on how they do it. But most recently, this particular article talks about how an alarming number of Minnesota teens report sexual exploitation. Well, what does that mean? It means that an alarming number of teens in Minnesota are selling their bodies for basic needs. Shelter, food, sometimes drugs. It's not a basic need, but it is if you need it, right? So an alarming number of teens are doing this on their own accord because they feel like there's no other way for them to do it. These are teens, and that's right here in Minnesota. It was 9th and 11th graders that got surveyed with that question from this survey. Okay? In fact, there's a myth about sex trafficking that the bulk of it is shipping girls in from other countries. But that's not true either. More than 65% of all trafficking in the United States is domestic. See, traffickers don't need to cross the borders anymore to get their product. We're growing our own victims right here at home. And that is a sad shift. Wasn't good before, it's even worse now. And it's getting bigger. According to Lutheran Social Services, 26,000 men in the state of Minnesota buy sex annually. And that's just men, that's not transactions. And where there's good demand, business is good. And that's what's happening right now in our state. So listen, I understand this is not happy information. When I first got hired at Renew Hope and I had to dive into this topic and this issue, it took me the better part of 4 months to just come to grips with the realities of this industry. I was effectively dysfunctional for the first 4 months of my time doing this because I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't wrap my head around it as a dad, right? So I get it. Come to a business meeting, you're all having these great talks and you're eating this good food and you're ready to have a great night, and now we're talking about sex trafficking. Like, I get it, okay? I understand. But there's even some of you in here that be like, well, do we really need to get into the details of what you're talking about? And here, my question back to you, because I heard some people say yes, but my question back to you is, if we don't get into the details and if we're scared to address this issue, then how do we even talk about it at all, right? If we're too uncomfortable, and that's the introverts and the extroverts in this room. If we're too uncomfortable, how does it ever get addressed? So we need to talk about it, right? We need to talk about it. And what better night than a night of awesome people being in the room? I want to share with you a couple more. This is a local cheerleader, senior in high school, here in Minnesota, recruited a younger special needs girl on the cheerleading squad, put an ad in the paper, and sold her for sex twice. For her mom, the young girl's mom, found the text messages, alerted the police. She was arrested, tried, convicted, and is now serving time. High school senior, because she wanted a new pair of shoes. So when I ask you this question, the whole thing about, how does this affect me? How does this affect us individually? Understand what it takes in a society for a teenage girl to think this is the best route for me to go to get my new pair of shoes, right? There's something changing in our culture, and that's why we have to be scared of it. This guy here got sentenced to 17 years for trafficking in Stillwater. You guys, this is all right here in our town, okay? So this isn't in Vegas. This is all right here in our town. All right, I'm gonna move it along a little quicker here. So why should you care? Trafficking victims have dealt with force, fraud, and coercion, but they've also dealt with repeated victimization. Thousands of victims in your families and the people that you know, and you don't even know that they're here, that they're there. Basically, there are survivors among us, is what I basically say within that. And many times we don't even know that it's happening. It's truly the lowest form of the human experience. I've heard trafficked survivors say that murder and torture has more dignity. We received a phone call from someone in a shelter in northern Minnesota. And they said, we have this young lady here. She's familiar to us. We know she has trafficking in her background. Her mother was selling her for sex because her mom has a drug problem. Oh, God. And we might think that that's rare, because another myth that's actually out there is that the way that traffickers get their victims is they drive by and swoop them up in speedy white vans, right? That's not how it works. In fact, the recent survey, more than 50% of the survivors said that they were first trafficked by a family member. So when I talk about how big of a deal this is, right, and why we should care, why we should pay attention, that's why we do it. All right, I'm going to skip here into what can we do about it. Is that fair? What can we do about it? First of all, we got to do something, okay? No, you can go with that. All right. First of all, we got to do something. We can't be silent. Silence fixes nothing. It's the great enabler. Help raise awareness and educate other people. At Renew Hope, we have these things called stage meetings or stage presentations, where we do something similar to this, but it can be groups of 5 or 50 or 200, whatever it may be. We'll come in and we'll do an education time for anybody in your church, in your community, wherever it may be. You can partner with us and host one of those meetings at your local establishment or wherever it may be. We'll come and do it for you. That is our job, and we're excited to do it. You can help raise awareness and educate. That's how that works. Adopt an organization that's already engaged in the industry. At Renew Hope, we have these things called Live Life, Give Life events, where we put on an event, we help you put on an event that helps raise awareness for the issue of trafficking here locally. It helps us fund some things, but they're a blast. They're a lot of fun. They're mud runs and bike rides and cribbage tournaments. There's anything that can be cool, anything that can be a fun thing to do can be turned into a Live Life, Give Life event and make a difference for trafficking. So the other thing you can do is leverage your influence. So everyone in this room knows someone. You can introduce us to that person. And then we can tell them about our stage events and tell them about our Live Life, Give Life events. We would love to do that. I have a box full of cards that I'd love to hand out to everybody here tonight.
Big hand for Chad and the mission and the difference he's making.